fourth edition of the Nigerian International Petroleum Summit, newly renamed the Nigerian International Energy Summit, held in Abuja on the 6th of June to 10th of June 2021, with the theme tagged "From Crisis to Opportunities." The conference was hosted by the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources. It is so apparent that the NIPS has come to stay, as it gets better and well-planned year in, year out. As a world-class conference, it plays host to the oil and gas stakeholders, IOCs, in Nigeria, Africa, and the world. It is the flagship of the oil and gas showcase in Africa today. Little wonder why the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources, through all its agencies, is not resting on its oars, as they not only pledge their commitment but put words into action, ensuring that the oil and gas sector in Nigeria and Africa especially are not left behind in the scheme of things in the global energy mix and the oil and gas sector generally. Hence, the declaration of this decade as the decade of gas, despite the COVID-19 outbreak, which made the world stand still. One of the parastatals under the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources present at the NIPS 2021 edition, that is the Nigerian Content Development Monitoring Board, under the leadership of the Executive Secretary, Engineer Simbi Wabote, who has been on the forefront of moving the board forward. Some of the key achievements of the innovative ideas and initiatives of the Executive Secretary and his team which were taken in bold and giant strides, have elevated the NCDMB to greater heights. Since the inception of the board in 2010, the board has been consistent in promoting development and enforcement of the local content initiatives in the oil and gas industry, and enforcement of the local content implementation in the oil and gas industry, leading to some key achievements. A case in point, in the past, before the Act, the NCDMB had an annual spend of $20 billion with little or nothing retained in country. But today, the board can confidently say,
before the Act, we had an annual spend of $20 billion with little or nothing retained in country. Today, I can confidently say that we spend $5 billion in country every year. Before 2010, we targeted the establishment of 4 pipe mills. Today, we have 2 world-class pipe mills and 5 very impressive pipe coating facilities in country.
Possible. I mean, it's possible. Like you know, Total has also changed its name to Total Energies, and we must be able to adapt to changes. Today, the world is talking about energy transition and renewables, as it were, so we can still be focusing on petroleum. So yes, it's possible. The name might change, and if it does, I think it's a healthy development.
Joined his voice with the FG's declaration, saying it is a welcome development. Take a listen.
Oh, well, we've declared this sometime last year, so it's not new to us. What we're trying to do now is to communicate it, is also to get all stakeholders to buy in, because we need everybody to progress with regards to the new policy of Decade of Gas. So NIPS gives on an opportunity to assemble all stakeholders to share some of government policies and aspiration on how we progress gas in our country, because like was said by the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum, we keep touting the quantity of gas we have. What does that really mean? That's how we tout the quantity of oil that we have. Have we been able to harness the gas resources that we have and also the oil resources that we have? So It's really a forum to further interact with stakeholders and make them know what government is thinking with regards to the decade of gas and how they can help government actualize that policy declaration.
He also added that the NCDMB is not resting on its oars because the board is focused on seeing Nigeria harnessing the gas potentials of Nigeria to better the economy. He also added that the NCDMB has a pivotal role to play in actualizing the gas master plan.
My role is, if you look at the theme of this conference, which is challenges to opportunities in summary, in terms of local content, we're living in the opportunity spectrum. So the development of gas creates a lot of opportunity for local content. So that's our role is big. Our role is how do we ensure that Nigerians gain employment through the process? How do we ensure that Nigerian businesses participate actively in the development of that decade of gas? How do we ensure that the capital flight that we experience in the oil and gas sector does not happen again? All that value is retained in country. So as a matter of fact, we get excited in local content with the thinking. And like you know, we have a 10-year strategic roadmap, which for us is to achieve local content 70% by the year 2027. And you cannot achieve local content if you don't create the projects, if you don't create the opportunity. So declaring a decade of gas is one of the key pillars of our strategic intent to take us to the 70% in the year 2027.
While also projecting the Nigerian contents of the oil and gas industry.
Very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I want to ask a quick question. How many of us here follow the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board on social media? Can I see by show of hand? Brilliant. Has there been a worthy content following them? Do you see things that makes you happy about local content in Nigeria? You see. Awesome. So those of you who are not following, do well to follow the NCDMB. And I say that to say this because every time you would find the NCDMB is doing something, either inspecting facilities for in-country capacity assurances, or they are entering collaborations with different agencies and companies in the industry, creating value for Nigerians. One that caught my fancy was a recent partnership with a Nigerian company and the NNPC to create a downstream value in the waterline or riverine areas of the Niger Delta. And that is creating modular refineries in those places with the capacity to store about 50 million liters, becoming like some sort of also storage base for the entire country. I was thinking that deserves a round of applause from the NCDMB, for the NCDMB. That, of course, and many others. Maybe the funds for women, the additional funds for service companies, which the funds for women and told Nexim Bank doubles it from what the board is doing. Now, why have I said all of this? I said all of this because of Austin J.J. Okocha. It was said by the English press and sports commentators. He was so good, they named him twice. Our next speaker was so good, government gave him a second term. Welcome, Executive Secretary, NCDMB, Engineer Simbi Wabote, as he gives us the opening address.
From Lagos, Port Harcourt, and everywhere, I think today will be a great day. For the next 3 days, we will be here for the NOG. And let me thank you in particular, everybody that have been here during the Nigeria International Petroleum Summit, which we held a couple of weeks back, and today we are here for the Nigerian Oil and Gas Summit. So thank you very much. It shows our commitment and our desire to move our country forward. Let me also acknowledge the directors of the board who are also here on this Nigerian Content Seminar, coming after a very disruptive pandemic that ravaged the world. We are grateful to the Almighty God that we are able to weather the storm such that we are able to physically converge to have this seminar. As you will agree, this seminar has become a key component of the NOG conference, as it thus presents an excellent platform to discuss various elements of the NOGIC Act and the Nigerian content practice with industry operators, service providers, and other stakeholders in the industry. Firstly, Let me congratulate NMPC and the organizers of the Energy Conference on the 20th anniversary of the event. The conference has over the years become a key marker on the calendar of Nigeria oil and gas industry events. It is a no mean feat to keep strategic thought leaders in the industry engaged for 2 decades, all through the high and low points of our very dynamic industry. In the last 20 years, the price of crude oil had peaked at above $150 per barrel and entered the negative territory briefly in 2020. It will be a good exercise for the organizers of Energy Conference to document these realities and the strategic responses over the years for posterity and future reference. This year's conference is also coming just few days after the much awaited passage of the Petroleum Industry Bill by the National Assembly. I say a big congratulations to Nigeria and our dear President Muhammadu Buhari, leaders of the National Assembly, and the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources and other top leaders and stakeholders in the industry for this wonderful outcome. It was long in coming, but it is better late than never. With this elephant in the room being taken care of, I look forward to a shift in our deliberations to how we realize the various opportunities enabled by the provisions contained in the bill. At next year's Energy Conference, by which time I expect the NMPC Limited will be in place, I hope to see a renewed vigor in the projection and pursuit of strategies to take the Nigerian oil and gas industry to perhaps the next level. The theme of this year's Energy Conference is fortifying the Nigerian oil and gas industry for economic stability and growth. I have no doubt that when given accent by Mr. President, the Petroleum Industry Bill will fortify the industry with the key provisions made for the industry governance and the fiscals, provide stability with the provisions for the host communities, and drive growth and investment with certainty brought about by the passage after more than 15 years of drafting. In line with the theme, this year's Nigerian Content Seminar will be used to highlight what we are doing to fortify, stabilize, and grow the industry in line with the provisions of the NOGIC Act. Fortification, therefore, is defined as the defensive wall or other reinforcement built to strengthen a place against attack. Attacks against the Nigerian oil and gas industry could be in various forms, but from NCDMB perspective, such attacks include deliberate or dubious effort to foster none or low patronage of established in-country capacity and capabilities, non-remittance or diversion of Nigerian Content Development Fund, abuse of expatriate quota, and many others. We continue to deploy the provisions of the NOGIC Act to fortify the oil and gas industry against these attacks, such as Section 3, 12, and 28 of the NOGIC Act, which states that first consideration shall be given to Nigerian operators in the award of blocks and licenses, to Nigerian goods and services in the evaluation of bids, and for the employment and training of Nigerians in any project executed in the Nigerian oil and gas industry. Let me therefore emphasize that this is the law of the land, and the default mindset for any reputable local or international operator or service provider is to comply. In respect of the non-remittance of the Nigerian Content Development Fund, I wish to announce that we have recovered close to $100 million of undisputed obligations from the third-party forensic audit of remittances between 2010 to 2017. The disputed obligations are being closed out to bring this exercise to a close. Ladies and gentlemen, let me use this opportunity to announce the third-party forensic audit of remittances for the year 2028, 29, and 2020 are scheduled to begin in the fourth quarter of this year. Upon completion, this will bring our books up to date on backlog of remittances. As part of measures to plug loopholes and also make it easy for those that genuinely want to remit, we launched the NCDF remittance platform last year, hosted on the NOGIC JQS. And more than 80% of operators and service providers have migrated to the platform. Please contact our Finance and Treasury Directorate if you require any support to move from the old system to the new one. Once again, let me commend those operators and service companies who diligently make their remittances accurately without any compulsion from the board. It is my expectation that others will follow your good example. The second aspect of this year's conference theme is economic stability. It is a known fact that the oil and gas industry is very dynamic. Oil boom is usually followed by oil bust, with attendant impact on our economy. One of the dictionary meanings of stability is the property of a body that causes it when disturbed from a condition of equilibrium or steady motion to develop forces or movement that restore the original condition. So what are those properties we require to ensure that Nigeria economy remains fairly stable when the variants of the oil industry come knocking? Two key areas I would like to point out are domestic refining and local manufacturing. Refining most of our crude oil locally will create jobs, conserve forex, either to use for import and as well as generate forex from export of petroleum products and derivatives. Local manufacturing will ensure self-sufficiency to decouple the country from reliance on imported goods. In these two areas, we have relied on Section 70 of the NOGIC Act, which mandates the board to assist local contractors and Nigerian companies to develop their capabilities and capacities to foster the attainment of the goal of developing Nigerian content in the Nigerian oil and gas industry. Our partnership with Walter Smith resulted in the delivery of 5,000 barrels per day modular refinery in Imo State, which is very much in operations more than a year ago. Next in view is the 2,500 barrels per day DuPont modular refinery, which is due next quarter for commissioning in Edo State. By the next NOG conference in 2022, it will be the turn of the 2,000 barrels per day Atlantic refinery in Bayelsa State. Our oil and gas industrial parks in Cross River State and Bayelsa State are getting to the completion stages. And very many thanks to all those international oil companies that have partnered with us to see that park come alive. Each is sitting on 25 hectares of land fully dedicated to the local manufacturing of oil and gas components and other products or its linkage sector. Let me also highlight that we have put in place intervention funds to serve as buffers to mitigate the impact of shocks from the oil and gas cycles. Section 104 of the Act created the Nigerian Content Development Fund, and we have set up a total of $400 million, with $300 million being managed by Bank of Industry and $100 million being managed by Nexim Bank. In the areas of growth, Our main focus is on gas, knowing fully well that the President and the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources declared a decade of gas last year, with the declaration of year 2020 as the year of gas and the years 2021 to 2030 as the decade of gas. We have raked up our investment partnership and even created a 10-hectare gas hub in Polako, hosting gas-based industries and factories. Our partnership in the gas sector have unlocked 5,600 metric tons of LPG storage facilities, annual production of 1.2 billion LPG composite cylinders, and infrastructure and facilities for processing of 840 billion scf of gas across 13 states of the Federation, namely Bayelsa, Delta, Edo, Kano, Kaduna, Katsina, Bauchi, Nasarawa, Zamfara, Niger, Plateau State, Gombe, Jigawa State, and the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. We are on the lookout for further partnerships to process and utilize the abundant gas reserves in the country to enhance the realization of Mr. President's declaration on gas. Let me highlight that the growth trajectory we foresee are underpinned by a 10-year strategic roadmap aimed at achieving 70% Nigerian content in the oil and gas industry by the year 2027. We are on the 4th year of implementation of the strategic initiative, which has taken local content to 35% in Nigeria. One advantage of starting this strategic roadmap is that the growth in local capacities and capabilities is preparing us as a country to take full advantage of the commencement of the operation phase of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, AFTA. I see AFTA as the practice of local content on the continental level. Although the COVID-19 pandemic deepened or dampened the momentum of the rollout, the agreements represent a huge opportunity for African countries to double the inter-African trade currently estimated at 15%, which is the lowest when compared to other continents. With the world's largest single market free trade area and a 1.2 billion person market, AFTA opens up a new horizon for businesses for many decades to come. As I wrap up, ladies and gentlemen, I also have the opening address. Let me use this opportunity to re-emphasize the compliance with the Act is the cornerstone of the success or otherwise of the local content practice. I make bold to say that some of the delegates in the room today are beneficiaries of the NOGIC Act, and it is quite uncharitable to turn around to sabotage efforts to broaden the envelope of domestication and domiciliation. Great companies self-regulate to do the right thing within the confines of their business environment, thus making their interface with agencies of government seamless. Local content must not be seen as a cost center, but part of the business with several benefits of all nations that will benefit all nations, businesses and investors involved in the practice. Out of this country to China, and then you leave that youth population, I can assure you that when you finish your project, you cannot operate it, because you must balance the social need of the people with your crave and drive for cost reduction against the survival of a nation. Let me highlight that we are not helpless or oblivious of what to do as a regulator when it comes to dealing with recalcitrant defaulters. We are very pragmatic and only resort to the deployment of our powers when all efforts to bring the offending parties to compliance fail. Let me at this point thank Total Energies It used to be Total Limited in those days, but Total Energies. It was out of the Jada project that Total took faith in this country and decided to go ahead with the Jada project, that we are able to develop our fabrication capacity from 60,000 metric tons to 250,000 metric tons. And that, to me, is sincere partnership. Any company that can challenge what Total has done to this country in terms of building local capacity and believing and investing in this country will probably raise their hands and see me for further discussions. So please, can we put our hands to Total Energies? What I see from where I sit, it's a constant battle with some of the IOCs who believe that the only place to carry out their work must be China and not Nigeria. And I've said it severally, nobody can compete with the Chinese, not the Europeans, not the Americans. You cannot compete with them when it comes to cost. But I think for a country you've been around for almost 50 years, you must have in your heart on how to develop the country and help the government to create employment and create in-country value for the country. But I don't see it in some of the international oil companies that operate in Nigeria. Let me also add that we are a regulator with the additional mandate to catalyze the development and growth in the industry. To all the operators, joint venture partners, co-venturers, contractors, service providers, and various stakeholders present in the room, let me re-emphasize that our desire is not to block or delay the implementation of any project. In fact, we are always concerned when there is slowdown of activities in the industry. If there is no project, we also know that there is no local content development. And that's why we are more than ecstatic as Nigerian content for the passage of the Petroleum Industry Bill. I believe that the content of the bill might not satisfy every stakeholder, but to a large extent, what I know is that most stakeholders concerned were taken into consideration. So I hope the stakeholders will come to the table with the Nigerian government to continue to unleash those projects that they have told us that have been withheld because of the uncertainty created by the Petroleum Industry Bill. So my belief is that things will begin to move, and things will begin to move very fast, especially at this time when the thought process is on green energy. If we do not utilize our abundant hydrocarbon resources at this time, then there is no other time. In another 20, 30 years, we'll probably end up like the coal mines in Enugu, where nothing is happening to it. So this is the time, and this is the right time that the bill was passed to enable all those investors to come around the table for us to spend our way, if you like, from gas into the transition fuel as it comes its way. So this is the time for us. There is no excuse any longer for those investors. Let me particularly thank the operators whom, without you and your contribution to the NCDF fund, we will not be where we are today. 98% of our contribution comes from the operators. And we thank you very much for supporting Nigerian content at that level. The only thing we resist in any attempt to drag us back to the old days of rapid importation and near zero in-country value addition using all manner of excuses. I am sure that we can all agree to the fact that the Nigerian content journey is here to stay, and it is forward ever and backward never. In closing, ladies and gentlemen, I look forward to a robust seminar all through the panel sessions lined up for today, touching on ACTA opportunities, in-country capacity, export, and others. Let me use this opportunity to once again appreciate Total Energies for hosting the NOG Nigerian Content Seminar. You are truly a genuine partner in the development of Nigerian oil and gas sector and the deepening of Nigerian content practice in Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, and the slogan remains, forward ever, backward never. Thank you. The Nigerian Oil and Gas Conference, which also marked the 20th anniversary of NOG. Let me once again express my appreciation to the speakers, the panelists, and all delegates at yesterday's NOG Nigerian Content Seminar hosted by Total Energies. We had very frank discussions on opportunities in the African Continental Free Trade Area, unleashing the untapped potential of our women in energy, mitigating the impact of COVID-19 pandemic, and strengthening Nigerian content through legislation. In this panel session, let us shift the discussion to the future of Nigerian hydrocarbon sector and the global energy transition. The outline, therefore, of my presentation will provide an overview of the global energy transition, some of the key drivers of the debate, the projected outcome of this transition, and Nigeria's hydrocarbon landscape and its future prospects. The term energy transition refers to the global energy sector's shift from fossil fuel-based systems of energy production and consumption, including oil, natural gas and coal, to renewable energy sources like wind and solar, as well as lithium, ion batteries, just to mention but a few. Energy transition is not a recent phenomenon, as it has been occurring for centuries. The usual trigger for this is the need to utilize energy that is efficient, effective, and economic. As at the 15th century, biomass was used as the main source of fossil fuel. Later in the 19th century, biomass was largely replaced by coal as the preferred source of fuel. A century later, oil was discovered, and it did replace coal as the preferred source of fuel. Crude oil was so much loved and valued that it was nicknamed the black gold. I wonder why that name, the black gold. Somebody sometime said anything black is not good. Anything white is good. Hence, White House, angel usually is replaced as white, while the devil is black. But then they christened it the black gold. But it was good and was loved by everybody. In the late 20th century, gas was seen as the cleaner fuel, and hence it gained much prominence over crude oil as the preferred cleaner fuel. So in other words, this transition has been with us from time immemorial. Now, if we want to go a bit crude with it, in those days when the early men, for those of us who were watching TV when we were young, they used to show us how the early men used to live. They then looked for a source of energy and then discovered firewood as a source of energy. So they started using firewood in everything that they did. Even to drive locomotive, it was firewood that they will burn. To bake bread that we eat, to do everything, it was firewood. Little wonder the developed countries did cut down all their forests. Never existed anymore. So everything you see in America or in Europe are all what you call secondary forests that they try to build on. So they used it to survive during that period. And then somewhere along the line they said Africa was discovered. Matter of fact, Pongo Park discovered River Niger, even though it did exist before Mungo Park was born. But it did discover, so when they discovered Africa, Africa was also told what the source of energy was, which was firewood. So we started hewing firewood, and we started getting the rhythm of utilizing it for all sorts of energy. All of a sudden, they then discovered coal. And they came back to us in Africa to say firewood was dangerous. We should stop cutting firewood, that the new source of energy was coal. And a lot of investment went into that sector. If you go to Enugu today, we discovered coal in abundance. And then when we wanted to start utilizing coal, they then discovered hydrocarbon. And they said coal was not good. So we had to stop using our coal. But today, in a place like China, the greatest source of energy for them in terms of power is still coal. Why did they survive that? And we in Africa and in Nigeria in particular could not utilize our coal. I will come to that later. But that is the transition. So now we found hydrocarbon. DPRO told us they are still discovering 206 TCF of gas. We are told that the unproven reserve is almost 600 TCF. Crude oil is in abundance. I think it was the GMD who shared the statistics one day and said, even if we are utilizing the gas that we have today, in the next 50 years, we'll probably not utilize half of what we have discovered. But then came the discussion to transit completely. Energy transition we can understand, but now the discussion is green energy. So our fossil fuel is bad. But let me not go into that because the OPEC Secretary General did justice in terms of some of the data and statistics he provided with regards to the transition itself. Now in the 21st century, renewable energy has been embraced as a much cleaner and environmentally friendly source of energy, with increasing clamor to outright shift to the renewable energies. Some of the key drivers of this push of energy transition in our era include the following: technological advancement in the creation of other forms of energy, hitherto far-fetched technology to manufacture solar panels or construct windmill farms are becoming a commonplace. Reduction in the acquisition cost of renewable energy sources, such as solar and wind, as well as the cost of energy storage, leading to massive rollout of solar power, electricity in homes, and increasing adoption of electric vehicles by companies and consumers. Environmental regulation issues and the need to reduce energy-related greenhouse emissions, two various forms of decarbonization. The depletion of the hydrocarbon reserves in most of European hydrocarbon-rich countries. For example, the North Sea, that used to be a prolific producer of oil decades ago, peaked in 1999 and is now largely a location for decommissioning of oil production assets. It is estimated that UK's proven oil reserve is not sufficient to sustain its domestic consumption for the next 5 years without increased importation. Netherlands has 0 barrel of proven reserves left and relies heavily on oil importation. European countries are largely at the forefront of the push for energy transition and have taken various measures to realize their agenda for renewable energies. For instance, in 2007, Germany announced its plan to phase out subsidies for its coal industry. Year 2016, the Dutch Parliament voted for 55% cut in CO2 emission by the year 2030. This, of course, will translate to reduction in their use of fossil fuels. Norway agreed to ban the sale of new internal combustion engine vehicles by the year 2025, while Britain also agreed to ban all diesel and petrol cars and vans. Some of the major European banks have announced to halt the financing of hydrocarbon-related projects as part of their support for the decarbonization efforts. And if you must know, they have also perfected strategy to fund local NGOs, local environmental activists to come after hydrocarbon-rich countries as part of their strategy to contain this. These pronouncements have direct and indirect implication on the global energy ecosystem as nations, businesses, and individuals adjust to the shifting energy landscape. For example, the use of internal combustion engine is expected to reach its peak by the year 2028, after which electric battery vehicles will start to erode its market share such that by the year 2035, electric cars will constitute 35% of available motor vehicles. It is, however, important to emphasize that opinion of industry leaders and institutions are divided in respect of the outlook of the energy transition debate. A survey administered to CEOs of various industries to ascertain their thoughts on the extent to which energy transition will affect their industry shows that the impact is varied. 40% of CEOs in the oil and gas industry believe that energy transition will fundamentally affect their businesses, while another 45% believe that it will affect their businesses to some extent. Only 15% of the CEOs of the oil and gas industry believed that energy transition will have no effect whatsoever on their businesses. This mix of opinions can be correlated with my opinion in the energy transition debate. The outcome I see is a redistribution of the constituents in the energy mix, rather than the outright swap of one form of energy to the other. As new forms of energy evolve, the degree of energy mix will vary across countries, regions, and continents. I believe that the technological capability and to some extent the natural endowment of any country will ultimately determine the components of its energy mix. I don't think we will ever hear the last of energy transition as long as mankind is in existence. We are very innovative, inquisitive, and a genius of some kind. We replace trade by barter with cowries, then move to coins, then banknotes, then turn cashless, and there are still more to come. It should not be a surprise, therefore, if in the next 1 or 2 centuries we discover another form of energy from the moon or the Mars to add to the mix of our forms of energy. Especially now that the likes of Elon Musk and the, Richard Branson are rushing to the moon and the Mars. Very soon they will discover another form of energy. It is therefore important that as we continue to expand the opinions and source of energy available for our use, we keep our minds open to welcome new additions without discarding existing ones in a rush. Despite the unpleasant narratives about coal, the International Energy Agency in its 2021 Global Energy Review projects that the global coal demand in 2021 is set to exceed 2019 levels and approach the 2014 peak, while China alone is projected to account for over 50% of global growth. Coal demand in the United States and the European Union is also rebounding while our coal mines in Enugu remain moribund. Today, somebody sent me a text and said, why are they allowing mining of minerals, gold and the rest in the north, and they are not allowing the mining of coal in Enugu? I said, nobody has stopped you from mining coal. If you have the opportunity to do so, you should. But today, all the coal mines are moribund. The global push for decarbonization due to environmental concerns is indeed valid, and I'm therefore delighted that our researchers are also looking for ways to address these issues with the various efforts on blue hydrogen to capture and store or reuse carbon emissions. Ladies and gentlemen, permit me at this point to add that the hard push for energy transition may also be setting us up for oil price of over $100 a barrel. As oil and gas development project has been stifled of funds, all companies become shy or guilty of moving forward with field developments. We are preparing the ground for sudden disconnect between demand and supply. While global demand can become bullish within few months, it takes years to complete oil and gas development projects. Let me now bring it home to our Nigerian situation. With all the push for energy transition, what does the future hold for Nigerian hydrocarbon industry? As variously espoused by Mr. President and our Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources at various fora, the future of Nigerian hydrocarbon industry is in gas. With an enviable proven oil reserve of 37 billion barrels and proven gas reserves of 206.5 TCF, Nigeria is indeed a major player in the global hydrocarbon landscape. The proven and unproven gas reserve is estimated at 600 TCF, thus leading the Nigerian being referred to as a gas province with pocket of oil. Despite the huge reserves, the utilization is still relatively very low. For instance, the Nigerian Gas Association did estimate that gas constitutes just 5% of the energy mix in Africa. This shows that Africa has a lot of catching up to do in energy transition when compared to other continents such as Europe and North America. Consequently, Nigerian daily gas production is estimated as 7.5 billion barrels per day, as highlighted by NNPC GMD during the recently concluded NIPS conference. Even if we double this production, this will only utilize 5.5 TCF of our proven reserves every year. So do the maths, 206.5 TCF. And even if we continue, we will only utilize 5.5. Therefore, are we in a hurry to set aside this abundant natural resource that God has given us to look somewhere else? The answer to me is no. This means our current proven gas reserves can sustain us for about 40 years. If the 600 TCF estimate is considered, it means we need more than 100 years to finish the gas reserves. Gentlemen, none of us will be here in the next 100 years. So there is hope for us with regards to gas. Doubling current utilization means constructing 6 additional trains for LNG to process, more than double the gas used for power plants, LPG, orthogas, fertilizers, and just to mention but a few. While this might sound very daunting, I am extremely pleased that the Ministry of Petroleum Resources, under the sterling leadership of President Muhammadu Buhari and the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Chief Timothy Silva, have commenced implementation of several initiatives that seeks to develop the gas sector in line with the Decade of Gas Declaration. Construction works on Train 7, LNG Train 7 has commenced, which will increase the current capacity of the plant by 30%. The 614-kilometer long Ajaokuta-Kaduna-Kano AKK gas pipeline under construction by NNPC is expected to transport 3.5 BCF per day of gas. Other initiatives include the gas flare commercialization program and the Nigerian gas expansion program aimed at deepening domestic utilization of LPG and auto gas. At NCDMB, we are also pursuing various aspects of gas development and utilization programs to enhance delivery of government policies and directives. 70% of our partnership investment programs are targeted towards gas development projects. In the last 2 years, we have commenced partnership to deliver gas value chain related projects as follows. Partnership with Nedo Gas Processing Company in Kwale Delta State for the establishment of 80 million scopes of gas processing plant and a 300 million scopes Kwale gas gathering hub. Partnership with Transcell Gas Limited for the construction of 5,000 metric tons LPG storage and loading terminal facility in Koko in Delta State. Partnership with DuPont Midstream for the construction of first energy park in Nigeria, inclusive of a modular refinery, power plant, and 400 million scf per day gas gathering facility at Igboko in Edo State. We have partnership with Brass Fertilizer for the development of 10,000 metric tons per day methanol plant and 350 million scf gas processing plant at Odiema in Brass. Partnership with Ron Gas Group for the manufacturing of 1.2 million composite LPG cylinders every year in Bayelsa and in Lagos State. Partnership with Butane Energy to deepen LPG utilization in the north with the rollout of LPG bottling plants and depots in 10 northern states and Abuja. There are other proposals in our project funnel under review for processing more than 1 billion standard cubic feet of inland gas projects. With the existing and ongoing gas transmission infrastructure, there is opportunity to serve regional markets in West Africa and the Sahel, the development of domestic LNG. In closing, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I believe we have momentum to develop a huge gas reserve as our transition energy. We are excited that Mr. President declared years 2021 to 2030 as Decade of Gas, and we believe this will open vista of multiple opportunities for us all. Also, the recent passage of the Petroleum Industry Bill will act as much needed enabler that will boost the development of our reserves. Against this backdrop of the debate on energy transition, the future of our gas hydrocarbon and the future is now. I call on industry stakeholders to join hands with government and all well-meaning Nigerians to defeat another demon confronting the development of our gas resources. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening.